Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name's Alicia and I'm the owner of Alicia Be Creative. In today's video, I'm actually going to let you guys watch this video through, but I'm going to share 10 tips that I came up with for how to decide and determine how to price your items. So definitely stay tuned to learn the 10 tips, and of course everything else will be listed below. Let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so let's go ahead and get into today's video. So of course we are going to be starting with a 16-ounce glass can. This is actually from my website, aliciabecreative.com, as well as today's UVDTF decal. So we're going to do something a little bit different today, as I mentioned in the intro. Instead of kind of walking you through the process, because you guys have seen me apply both UV-DTF and you've seen me apply rhinestones to pens, I'm going to let you guys watch the video. And of course, if you have questions about anything technical that I do, definitely leave those in the comments below. But I want to talk to you today about pricing. So I get a lot of questions on my channel as to how I price my items, especially from the standpoint of being a handmade, craft seller. So I wanted to talk a little bit about that. And without giving you specifics, although I will give you some numbers, I want to give you kind of some direction to go in when you are thinking about how you should be pricing your handmade items. So the first thing I want to talk about, of course, is you need to make sure that you are calculating your material costs, okay? So my material costs come to a total of $11.37, okay? So we have the glass can, which is directly from my website, and that is $3.50 currently. The UVDTF decal is $2.50. The pen, which I'm going to show you in a little bit, is actually a pen I picked up from the Dollar Tree, so it cost me $1.25. And then, of course, the most expensive parts of my materials are, of course, my rhinestones, because you guys know that I prefer to use glass rhinestones. It's just a preference of mine. So because glass rhinestones are sort of premium and, more high quality for a stone, those, of course, are going to be a bit pricier than something like a resin rhinestone or even that of like a jelly rhinestone. So my rhinestones for a pack of the scatter mix is going to be $17.99. And so of course I'm not going to add $17.99 to my materials cost. However, I am going to break that down into about how many pens I could get done with this exact rhinestone mix. So for me, that's about 5 pens using sort of the scatter method, keeping in mind I won't be able to use this larger SS20s and SS30s in the scatter mix. So that comes out to $3.60 for just stones. Then of course you have the glue cost. So I'm using Bob Smith's 2-part epoxy, and so I can get that for anywhere from $9.99 to $12.99, and I can get probably about a good 25 projects out of that. So that's a flat cost of about 52 cents, okay? The other piece that you need to account for when it comes to your cost of materials is don't forget to include your shipping materials. Now, I'm not talking about how much it costs you to ship an item. I'm talking about what you are going to be putting in your packaging, so your packaging, your box, your sticker labels, right? The stickers that you might add to the box, anything that you add additionally, that's tissue paper, crinkle paper, that might be bubble wrap, that's your custom logo tape. So all of those things, making sure that you add that into the cost of your materials as well. So I charge a flat rate of $3 on top of my other cost of materials to bring me to $14.37. So what I know is that my product, right, my bundle here for a pen and a glass can should not be any lower than $14.37. Otherwise, of course, I'm losing money. So the next thing we need to figure out, right, is to think about the cost of labor. So how much time does it take you to complete the project, and working that into your pricing at a fair wage for yourself, because of course your time is worth a lot. So make sure that you are charging for your time. So that is for you to determine sort of what your cost per hour is going to be. I will tell you that for me, this only took about an hour to finish the glass can and the pen in one sitting. So this doesn't really take a whole lot of time. And for me, this isn't something that takes a whole lot of skill either, compared to some of the other projects that I do that are a little bit more difficult and challenging for me as a creator, this one isn't something that really is going to take me a lot of time or really take me too much skill, just based on the other projects that I am comparing this one to. Okay. So let's just say you charge a flat rate of $15 an hour. So now we are up to $29.37. Okay. So that is the basis for what we should be charging. Okay. Based on the hypothetical numbers I'm putting, of course, in today's video. Okay. So the other thing you should take into account are, do you have any overhead expenses? So overhead expenses can really be kind of difficult for handmade creators to sort of figure out. And so I definitely encourage you to figure out, the cost of your utilities, if you have to rent a space, if you're using a space in your home, like myself, where I function out of my garage, and that is the only thing my garage is used for is my craft space. So taking into account of if you broke down your mortgage into your costs, right? And breaking that up space by space and taking that into account as part of your overhead. Also, things to think about when it comes to overhead charges, right? Electricity, any marketing you do, your website fees are also another sort of overhead expense that I think sometimes we forget about. And so from that, you should determine what your sort of overhead expense is going to cost you on any given day, okay? And then sort of work that in. Now, I don't really have sort of like a flat rate for that necessarily, but that is something to certainly keep in mind, especially if you are not someone who, works inside of your home, where sometimes we forget that those are pieces that we need to take account of. But definitely be sure to include those overhead costs in some way, shape, or form into your pricing, okay? So the next thing we need to do is, of course, account for a profit margin. So of course, the purpose of making our handmade products is to ensure that we are not only making back the money that it costs us for materials, but that we're also making money for our time and a little bit of money on top, which would go right back into your business, okay? So typically for a handmade business, you should account for a profit margin of about 20 to 50%. Now, depending, whatever percentage you choose to go with, you should make sure that that's consistent across all your products, and not just specific products. So if you want to make sure that you are getting a 50% margin, if it cost you $19.37 to make it, then you should be doubling that price in order to be your market price on your website, okay? So aside from accounting for a profit margin, before you kind of decide on your final pricing, there are some other pieces that you should consider before listing prices on your website sort of willy-nilly, okay? So you're going to want to do some researching, okay? I know it's kind of annoying and frustrating and time consuming, certainly, to be doing some research, but that's super important to research other competitors in your niche, similar creators, similar handmade websites and things, and look at their items and how their items are priced for their customer base and their market. And, compare what your items are to theirs. So keeping in mind things to be thoughtful of, think about the materials that they're using, the craftsmanship, the size of an item depending on what item you are thinking of trying to determine pricing around, and the uniqueness, etc. Okay? The other thing that isn't always necessarily talked about is the considered perceived value. And so what I mean by perceived value, I want you to take into account the perceived value of your handmade items. So you should price your items in a way that reflect your value and position, and make sure you're positioning your items as premium and high quality products, right? So these are products that we make by our hand, right? Because we are skilled artists and we are great at what we do. And so we should be paid for our time, and we need to also make sure that we are accounting for our worth and for our premium and high quality items that we spent lots of time creating, okay? So that is something to also consider, right? Your custom made pen, with your own blood, sweat, and tears is going to be much more valuable than something that someone bought from Amazon, right? That just was bought and manufactured in a warehouse, right? If you're still unsure of what to price What you can then do is do some testing on your pricing, okay? So for this, I would probably sell this as a set or a bundle, so a pen and a cup, right? But if I'm really unsure if my $25 or $35 range that I have in mind based on my cost breakdown is fair to my market or fair to my customers, I might price this a little bit differently on my website and kind of structure things differently. So instead of offering it as just a bundle, I might offer like tiered pricing. So you can purchase just a rhinestone pen for say $20. I would sell a rhinestone pen from anywhere from $15 to $20 based on the fact that I use glass rhinestones. And I might price my single glass can, this one with the rhinestone lid, for $25 because it has the custom rhinestoned lid, right? But then I might also then offer a bundle option where they can get both the pen and the glass can for $35. So of course they're saving a little bit of money if they decide to go with the bundle option, but at the same time, you are still sticking to a decent price that fits within your price range based on what you determine from your cost of materials and of course all of those other expenses that come with creating your products, okay? So the last few things I'll kind of share when it comes to determining pricing is you're going to want to continually to review and be prepared to adjust your pricing regularly. Now, I don't mean every day or every other day or every month, but I definitely would make sure to sit down once a year to really determine if your pricing is fair. Be mindful and be fair to yourself. We all know the cost of materials does continually go up, so you need to make sure that you are accounting for the increase in cost of materials, okay? Make sure that you are, keeping a really good spreadsheet of all the materials that you use for each of your items, whether that's a large spreadsheet, a notebook, whatever works for you. That way you can account for when things are increasing and be able to adjust your prices as needed. Other things to keep in mind is you need to know your audience and you need to know your customer base. Definitely stick to your prices. Don't let anybody tell you to lower your prices based on what fits their wallet, but remember who your key audience is. So if your demographic can't afford your items, maybe consider reassessing how you're selling your items or tweaking who your customer base is. Maybe that's not the customer base that you need to focus on and you need to focus on a different customer base and demographic. Remember that cups, rhinestones, and pens, etc. These are luxury items, so they're not necessities, right? So we need to make sure that we are seeking out customer base and demographics and gearing our marketing towards those demographics that are going to be able to purchase our luxury items because again, they are high quality, they are handmade, and we want to make sure that we are paid for what we are worth. Lastly, also, don't forget to account for your shipping costs. So if you are not selling on a website and you're selling on Facebook or Instagram or TikTok, make sure that you're accounting for, if you're going to be shipping this item, make sure you include those shipping costs in your final price. So I know this is a lot of information, of course, but I wanted to share a little bit about some inside things to keep in mind when, of course, it comes to pricing your items. I do really hope that this part was super helpful for you guys. I do know that I do get a lot of questions, and although I wasn't super specific, I should say, in how I chose to share sort of the numbers, for a bundle like this, I probably would charge anywhere from $25 to $35, probably closer to $35 because, of course, I like to use glass rhinestones, which are not sort of the cheapest rhinestone on the market. But definitely be sure to share with me your thoughts on how you determine pricing. If you have tips for anyone in the comments or myself, certainly, for how you determine how you're going to price your items or how you price your handmade, custom made cups, pens, etc. Be sure to leave those down in the comment section down below. And as always, I hope that you guys did enjoy today's video. If you did, be sure to give today's video a huge thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. And you guys know that I will see you in the next one.